الحمد للمتوحد بجلاله المتفرد وصلاته دوما على خير الأنام محمد.
al-ʿAqāḍid Jalāliyah is a commentary by Allāmah Jalāluddīn al-Dawani on al-Aqāḍid al-ʿAḍudīyyah by the great Allāmah ʿAḍud-Dīn al-Ījī. You have the book here in front of you, alhamdulillah, which is one of the books taught in Kalam in the traditional Farangi Mahalli curriculum, and is taught today in parts of the subcontinent which who are continuing the traditional Farangi Mahalli curriculum. Now, Allāmah ʿAḍud-Dīn al-Ījī is a major scholar in Kalam, and he's obviously teacher of Allāmah Taftazani. He's a teacher of Mir Sayyid al-Jurjani. He is one of the scholars in the sanad of the Farangi Mahallis themselves. Can you just briefly introduce Allāmah ʿAḍud-Dīn al-Ījī? Who is he? Him not being necessarily a household name in the Muslim Ummah, does that necessitate that he didn't make a huge contribution to the tradition like other scholars? Or who is
al-Ījī rahimahullah ta'ala, al-Qadi, Qadi al-Qudat, Qadi al-Mamlakat, ʿAḍud-Dīn al-Ījī, al-Shāfi'ī and Asha'rī, rahimahullah ta'ala, was Imam al-Azim, had a troubled life actually, politically speaking. He dies in jail, but he was also very close to many of the Salatin, particularly Abu al-Ishaq. These are the Ilkhanid, the Mughals basically. In fact, many of his works are dedicated to Abu Ishaq. So he has, in one way, he has a very flourishing political career as well. You remember Abu Ishaq, the Sultan, actually gives him a mobile madrasa.
Wow.
So that wherever the Sultan travelled with his army, Ījī was with him to teach. The Ottomans, they have a name called Diwan Hojasa, which is the fact that there's that Hoja, that Khaja, that teacher, who would come to the Diwan of the Sultan and he would lecture the Sultan. So al-Ījī for Abu Ishaq was very similar. That was his direct person. You could say his religious minister, it was his religious vizier, etc., etc. So when you say Qadi al-Qudat, and his father was also Qadi al-Qudat, by the way, and this is all happening in the Persian world. Al-Ījī, being Qadi al-Qudat, is basically like being Shaykh al-Islam in the Ottoman Empire. It's an official post. It's not that you give it to whomever you wish. It's an official post that's given to one of the highest ranked scholars, and they have political as well as religious authority. So it's a post that's deeply rooted in the dawla, in the state itself. So al-Ījī has a fine education, rahimahullah ta'ala. He is a Shafi'i. He produces a commentary famously on Ibn Hajib's work in Usul al-Fiqh, Shafi'i. He has a commentary on that, al-Ījī. So he was a great Usuli scholar, a great Imam of Fiqh. And he has other works, tafsir, he has different works. It's not like he's only got the one. But he becomes most famous for his al-Mawaqif. And the Mawaqif, as I alluded to earlier, is the one that's studied. But what's also interesting about the book is it's inspired by the Muhassal of Imam al-Razi. So although it's a book of theology, it begins with a discussion on ontology, a book on Umur Amma.
It's books like that for which Imam Subki in his Tabaqat al-Kubra will refer to Allāmah Dawani as being Imam al-Ma'qulat. Basically, it's books like this, and
absolutely
these kind of books go forward, and super commentaries are being written on them.
Well, for a Sayyid
by the
al-Sharif,
Farangi Mahallis themselves.
for a Sayyid al-Sharif to write a commentary on your book is something.
Sayyid al-Sharif is not just writing commentary on his book, but he's also the student
Absolutely. Of al-Ījī.
Al-Ījī as well.
So that's an interesting point. When thinking about al-Ījī, from his Talamiza is the likes of a Sayyid al-Sharif, al-Jurjani. Al-Ījī is important from the perspective of the fact that he produced students, and from the perspective that he produced great works. So a Sayyid al-Sharif writes a commentary on the Mawaqif. Now this Mawaqif, like I said, it was that movement into introducing more philosophy into the works of theology. The Muhassal is there, but the Mawaqif is significantly larger. Now, what al-Ījī does, and that makes him very unique, is even though he's writing al-Mawaqif, which is basically a matan, a very, very dense and expansive matan, but nevertheless it's a matan. He gives his own tahqiqat in that matan. Like, he has a way of writing. He really does. Even in the aqā'id, al-ʿAqā'idd al-ʿAḍudīyyah, the aqā'id is a small matan. And so it's a great thing to do, to sit there and juxtapose the matan of al-Ījī and the matan of al-Nasafi. So sit there now with the Nasafi and sit there now with the aqā'id of al-Ījī and compare, because one is Māturīdī and one is Asha'rī. But the Mawaqif is celebrated because they are his tahqiqat. And in fact, many said that Sayyid al-Sharif and al-Taftazani, much of their work was actually about preserving the positions of al-Ījī. That's really interesting. So he's like a game changer.
It's interesting because Allama Taftazani, he actually refers to Allama ʿAḍud-Dīn al-Ījī as being muhakkik.
Al-Muhakkik.
And that's very commonplace now to call somebody muhakkik, but when Taftazani is calling you a muhakkik,
when a muhakkik called you a muhakkik.
It's interesting because in one place I was reading Allama Taftazani rahimahullah, he says, for the Nazir, he can't do anything but benefit from the tahqiqat of Allama ʿAḍud-Dīn al-Ījī. And he says these words, he says, وَحَاشَاهُ أَن يَنْقُصَ أَوْ يَزِيدَ.
Allah.
So it's very interesting that this is Allama Taftazani's tribute to his teacher, but also not just being biased that he's my teacher, but he was
Full
the
stop.
muhakkik of the age.
He was a full stop.
He was a
full stop scholar.
الحمد للمتوحد بجلاله المتفرد